not gonna bullshit you. Maybe I'm casual. Call me whatever the fuck you want. Who the fuck is Igor? That hunchback ugly ass nigga over here calling plays? Shut the fuck up. I'm not even gonna waste your time here. Empty stats don't exist, especially when we're talking about the players with special talents in the NBA. Now, this is not to imply that all numbers are created equal, because they're not. But let me give you some examples that really showcase why it doesn't belong to special players. If Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins both shoot 5 or 6 from 3, but Stephen Curry is getting double teamed the second he crosses half court and having to create his own shot, let alone offense, while Andrew Wiggins is on straight catch and shoot opportunities, while yes, statistically and quite literally they both had 15 points on one missed three-pointer, Stephen Curry's 15 points essentially would weigh more than Andrew Wiggins' 15 points. Or if that example isn't the best for you, let's take it a step further. If Stephen Curry in 30 minutes of play has 30 and 8, shooting 50% from the field and from 3, but it just so happens despite that the Warriors are losing by 30, and with only, let's say, 5 minutes left in the game, both teams know that the other team won, they put in their reserves, and in this case the Warriors sub in Nico Mannion. And in those 5 minutes, Nico Mannion goes 5 of 5 from 3, shoots perfect from the field altogether, and the final score only being a loss by 15. If Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman came on live television and said Nico Mannion outperformed Steph Curry, he had a higher plus minus, he didn't miss a single shot, and with Nico, the team was making a comeback, but with Steph Curry, they were losing, y'all would never watch First Take again. But not to get too sidetracked, that's exactly what I'm talking about in the sense that empty stats don't really apply to star players. But if the terminology and concept of empty stats just has to exist or you'll be triggered by this video somehow, that terminology would apply to role players, straight up bad players, or players who benefit from the star players around them, but certainly not the star players themselves. For example, he's in the thumbnail, a guy like Trae Young. Dude was giving you 29 and 9 last season. Yet a lot of people devalued these numbers all because it was in a losing effort. In terms of rankings, there were people out there saying he was worse than players like Ja Morant and Drew Holiday because although they put up less numbers, their teams actually win the games. They have meaningful stats while Trae Young is putting up empty stats. Well, see, no, that's just not how that works. If a dude is giving you 29 and 9 on not even just solid, but straight up good efficiencies, dude damn near at a 60% true shooting percentage. The team isn't losing games because he's not as good as his numbers say he is. No, the team is losing games because they're not good at all. The Hawks last season had the worst defensive rating in the league and a bottom 5 offense. I'll address defense altogether later in this video, but let's just use common sense for 1 second. Let's say you're a head coach in the NBA. You have a bottom 5 offense in the league. However, you have a player on your team essentially giving you a 30-point double-double every single game. Are you then going to blame your offense struggling because of him or because of other players on the team? Are you not going to look at a Cameron Reddish who can't even shoot 40% from the field? That your 3rd and 4th best scorers only average 12 points and one of them's not even that efficient, the other's okay? And to take it a step further, schematically speaking, the guy who's averaging 29 and 9 is the only player that you trust with the ball in their hand. If he's not facilitating your offense, nobody is. I really don't even need to go any further. No, if you were the Hawks coach last season, you would not blame Trae Young for your offensive struggles, let alone your overall team success. Therefore, accusing those numbers as empty stats or even losing basketball is ridiculous. You can really cut this shit. There is no context, no situation, and there never will be any context or situation to where a player averaging 29 points and 9 assists is playing losing basketball, that he is the main reason your team does not win games. Now, nobody's implying Trae Young was the perfect player last season. Hell, he's not the perfect player today. There were some situations last season where he did shoot a 35-footer for no reason whatsoever. His shot selection down the stretch of games could have been better, and despite the fact he was really the only competent playmaker on the team, let alone a great one, if he could somehow not turn the ball over damn near 5 times a night, that'd be great too. But for those of you that are still critical of Trae Young's numbers and performance last season, I'm gonna put it to you in the most plain view possible. I acknowledge the fact that Trae Young has developed as a player. I think that's a fair assessment of Trae Young that really anybody would agree on. But would anybody watching this video really say that Trae Young took such a leap in talent that he went from this childish, empty stat guy who couldn't win basketball games to such a mature player that is now solely responsible for the Hawks being in the Eastern Conference Finals? And it barely has anything to do with the improved coaching and improved roster. Essentially, Trae Young held the Hawks back last season, and now he's able to carry them this season. If that's your take, my boy, I ain't gonna hold you, bruh. You got it. It's just no reason to argue with you. Now, Devin Booker is a player who went through this empty stats bullshit tenfold. With Trae Young, you could say it was only his 2nd season. The team just drafted him, so it can't be that damn good. And even if they were somehow empty stats, it was expected. Nobody had high high expectations for the Hawks in their second season of Trae Young. But Devin Booker, you've been in the league for like 4 or 5 years now. Not only have you failed to make the playoffs one time, your team has been convincingly one of the worst in basketball. And in fact, for some people prior to Chris Paul's injury, you still only put up empty stats because guess what? You needed a whole Chris Paul to make it to the playoffs? You just happened to be on the team that Chris Paul is running.
And Sage, to make matters worse, he got 2 seasons of DeAndre Ayton.
Man, the shit that y'all will say to push a negative narrative on a player is crazy. Briefly, because I don't want to literally say the same shit I said about Trae Young, dude averaged 26 points on good efficiencies. In regards to the 2018-19 season, no, Devin Booker was not the reason they were a bottom 5 offense. Secondly, do you guys know that this is the 4th coach Devin Booker has been with? Monty obviously being a good one, and well, look where they are. But prior to Monty Williams, Devin Booker's coaches were Jeff Hornacek, Earl Watson, and a nigga named Igor. I'm not gonna bullshit you. Maybe I'm casual. Call me whatever the fuck you want. Who the fuck is Igor? That hunchback, ugly ass nigga over here calling plays? Shut the fuck up. Now, when it comes to the Chris Paul takes, they're a thing of the past, right? Like, y'all are done saying that, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. It was dumb to say that to begin with, because just a year ago, even if you wanted to say every Phoenix Sun not named DeAndre Ayton was healthy the entire season, which isn't the case, but let's just roll with it. And let's say a nigga named Igor is a top 5 coach. Again, not the case, but let's just roll with it. DeAndre Ayton only played 38 games last season. The Suns were 20-18 in those games. Not only that, but their most impressive stretch came in the bubble, where they, you know,
swept playoff competition.
And I know a lot of times when you bring up the bubble, people talk about it doesn't count, it's fluke, yada, yada, yada. But the only team they beat in the bubble last season that didn't make the playoffs this season was the Oklahoma City Thunder. Such a mystery as to why they didn't make the playoffs this year. But then you fast forward to this season, and even if you just wanted to say Chris Paul solos, he's the only reason the Suns made the playoffs this year. Chris Paul gets injured in literally the first game of this playoff run, to the point where, yeah, he's playing, but he has one arm. But for y'all's sake, let's even downplay the injury and say by the time they went to Denver, Chris Paul was 100%. Devin Booker as the clear-cut #1 option in playoff basketball averages 28.8 points, 4.4 assists, 6 rebounds on 48% shooting from the field and basically 43% from the three-point line, shooting 95% from the free throw line as well. And before you guys go,
oh, Sage, DeAndre Ayton.
Sure, in games 2 and 3, DeAndre Ayton was fantastic. But in games 4, 5, and 6, DeAndre Ayton didn't even outscore Devin Booker in game 5 or 6 separately. Sure, Mikal Bridges played well and they had super pain. Where the fuck did he come from? But at the end of the day, Devin Booker has shown that he didn't put up empty stats. He never has and he never will, because again, same question. Sure, Devin Booker obviously over a 6-year stretch has become a better player. But in the years that Devin Booker was averaging 26 points, do you genuinely believe that 26 point per game first option Devin Booker was only capable of taking your team to being the 2nd worst team in basketball to now being in the Western Conference Finals? That his talent has made that much of a leap rather than the many things around him? I'm not even gonna be nice about it. You think that you're an idiot.
Silly little Sage, you get me so mad, you fucking casual. How did you forget defense?
Oh yeah, totally. Their defense was so bad. The individual defense of Trae Young and Devin Booker was so bad that it made their teams one of the 5 worst teams in basketball. For those of you that were sitting there thinking, but their defense, LOL, this entire video, let me ask you something. You can say it's improved all you want to. Would you consider Devin Booker and or Trae Young a two-way player? If you believe the defensive elevation of Trae Young took the Hawks from allowing the most points in the league last season to ranking 12th in points allowed this season? Exactly. I'm not even going to continue that. Shut the fuck up, dog. That shit makes no sense, bro. Damn near the same shit with D-Book. It's like, holy shit. Your organization, your teammates, your coaching matters. Nobody is ignoring the improvements Devin Booker and Trae Young have made to their games. Not only would it be a new level of ignorant in terms of me just trying to get a point across, it would just be disrespectful to the improvements they made to their game. They clearly put in the work in this offseason, and even though D-Book took out my damn Lakers, I'm glad that hard work is seeing results. But all of that slander and negativity they received prior to this season was downright unacceptable and inexcusable, because Trae a year ago, let alone Devin 2 years ago, were capable of very similar results. Do they go as far as the Western and Eastern Conference Finals? Maybe not. But if you swap 2018 D-Book and 2020 Trae Young with the D-Book and Trae Young we have today, those teams are not 2 of the worst worst teams in basketball. And I just hope that's finally recognized. Because if not, when is it time to say Zion's putting up empty stats? Or Zach LaVine's putting up empty stats? Or Colin Sexton and one day Cade Cunningham? These obvious special talents aren't just putting up empty stats, and we shouldn't devalue them for losing. They're on really shit teams or in real shit situations. Let's wait for them to get in better situations or on better teams. And if they get in those situations and they still end up losers, then fine, slander away. But for now, while they really can't help it, stop being a dick. But that's gonna do it for today's video. It's been your boy TSO Sage. Honestly, I used to tell niggas hit the like button and sub button, but at this point, I genuinely don't care. Ain't gonna ask niggas to do some shit they ain't gonna do. But regardless, I'ma still make content.